Ethan Carter had always known his work was dangerous, but he had never imagined it would feel like this. The ground shook violently beneath his boots as the volcanic world trembled around him. Smoke curled from deep fissures, and sparks flew like tiny stars from cracks in the jagged rocks. He gripped his scanner tightly, the screen flickering with warning signals. Somewhere below, hidden in the shifting ash, dragon hatchlings were trapped. He had been sent to observe the nesting grounds, not to interfere. Protocols were clear. Humans were not to enter the nest during the first trial of fire. Yet Ethan had watched the tiny creatures, no bigger than his hand, struggle as the quake tore the nest apart. His heart refused to accept inaction. Without thinking, he raced toward the hatchlings, dodging falling rocks and molten droplets that hissed as they hit the ground. A piece of debris crashed nearby and he ducked just in time. Dust filled his lungs, but he ignored the burning, the coughing, and the heat that seemed to press against him like a living thing. He reached the first hatchling, a small blue-scaled dragon barely blinking. It trembled with fear, but Ethan's calm voice seemed to reach through its panic. "Don't worry, little one. I've got you." He scooped it up, wrapping it in a heat-resistant pad from his pack. Sparks from the fissures hissed around him as the world groaned, a deep, living sound that seemed to warn him to leave. Another hatchling cried out from a distant crevice, its tiny voice carried by the quake. Ethan looked toward the second nest. Rocks shifted above it like the teeth of some enormous beast, ready to crush anything beneath. Time moved faster than it should have. He climbed over jagged stones and ducked under fallen beams, each step more treacherous than the last. His heart pounded, but he did not stop. He could not. Not when so many lives depended on him. He reached the second hatchling, its scales a delicate silver. A massive boulder cracked the earth above it, threatening to fall. Ethan dropped to his knees and pushed with all his strength. The hatchling wriggled free, chirping with relief. He lifted it and ran toward a safer area, but the ground beneath him gave way. He screamed as he plummeted into the darkness below. The fall seemed endless. Dust and smoke swirled around him, choking him, but he landed on a ledge, bruised and gasping. For a moment, everything was silent except the distant cries of the hatchlings. He pressed a hand to his chest, feeling the pain, feeling the fear. And yet, even with broken ribs and a sprained ankle, he could not stop thinking of them. Far above, the adult dragons circled the nests. Their eyes glowed with a mixture of curiosity and caution. They had seen Ethan act, had watched the human defy every rule they had set for centuries. Some tilted their heads, puzzled. Others hissed, warning him to leave. But Ethan did not run. He could not. From his ledge, he saw the final hatchling, a small green one, trapped beneath a fallen beam. His hands trembled as he climbed down, every movement painful, every breath a struggle. He reached the hatchling and lifted the beam with a tool, straining until it moved just enough for the dragon to crawl free. He held it close, whispering soothing words, feeling the small heartbeat against his own. Then came the worst sound, a low rumble, deep and terrifying as the volcano threatened to erupt fully. Rocks fell around him, molten lava spilling in rivulets through the cracks. He knew he could not stay. The hatchlings needed safety, and he needed to survive long enough to guide them. He began moving upward, each step a battle. Dust choked his throat and his vision blurred. He tripped over jagged stone, scraping his arms and face, but he refused to give up. Above, the adult dragons began to descend, their wings stirring the smoke and ash like a storm. Ethan held his breath, fearing their judgment. He had broken their rules, but he hoped they would see the choice he had made. Finally, he reached a narrow ledge with enough room to rest. He placed the hatchlings down carefully, watching them huddle together, blinking at him with wide, trusting eyes. He could see their small hearts beating rapidly, their tiny breaths puffing in the smoky air. "Go," he whispered. "Find safety." The hatchlings seemed to understand. They scrambled toward the small crevice he had cleared, disappearing into a protected space. Ethan let out a ragged breath, feeling a flicker of relief. But before he could move again, a massive rock shifted above him. He froze. The rock fell, crushing the ledge beneath his feet, sending him tumbling into darkness once more. When he landed this time, he could not tell up from down. Pain radiated through his body, sharp and relentless. His pack had torn and some of the hatchling's pads had fallen with him. His vision dimmed, the world spinning. Yet even then, even as he felt the edge of unconsciousness, his mind clung to one thought: the hatchlings must survive. Far above, the dragons hovered, observing in stunned silence. They had seen humans before, but none had moved like this. None had risked themselves so completely for the young of another species. They whispered among themselves, a sound like wind through chimes, a language older than the stars. Something was changing in their perception. Ethan felt the world slipping, but he refused to let go. He pressed himself against the cold stone, closing his eyes for just a moment, gathering strength. The hatchling's chirps echoed faintly in his mind, reminding him why he had acted, why he had fallen into this nightmare. Somewhere deep in the volcanic chamber, the smallest hatchling peeped, its voice carrying hope. Ethan smiled weakly through the pain. He had fallen, yes, but perhaps this fall was not the end. Perhaps it was only the beginning of something none of them could yet understand. And in that silent, trembling moment high above in the sky, the adult dragons watched and waited, unsure what they had witnessed, but certain that the humans' courage would not go unnoticed. Ethan Carter lay in the darkness, battered and bleeding but alive. And somewhere deep in the heart of the volcanic world, a promise was forming. A promise that would change everything, though no one knew how yet. The air was heavy and quiet after the eruption. Smoke drifted lazily through the shattered nesting grounds, and the ground still trembled now and then, as if the world itself was holding its breath. High above, adult dragons circled silently, their wings cutting through the ash-laden sky. The small hatchlings had vanished into the crevices Ethan had cleared, safe for now, but their tiny cries still echoed faintly in the distance. Ethan Carter lay hidden beneath a jagged rock shelf. His body ached from the fall, his chest still bruised, and his vision blurred from dust and exhaustion. For a long time he did not move. The silence pressed on him, heavier than the heat and smoke combined. He listened to the faint chirps of the hatchlings, the occasional rumble of shifting earth, and the distant hiss of lava. The world felt broken, yet it was alive. He slowly lifted his head and glanced at the hatchlings' crevice. They were safe, huddled together in the protective space he had made. Even through the haze, their tiny scales shimmered faintly in the dim light, blue, silver, and green. Ethan's lips curved into a weak smile. Despite the pain, despite the danger, he had done it. Above, the adult dragons hovered in a silent formation. They whispered in their ancient language, a sound like wind over glass, and debated among themselves. They had watched the human risk everything for creatures they barely understood. Some were angry, rules were rules and humans had no place among them. Others were curious, intrigued by this species that seemed fragile yet fearless. In the quiet, the smallest blue hatchling chirped again, and the sound seemed to ripple through the air. One dragon, a large silver female named Kalira, tilted her head. "It is not fear," she murmured to the others. "It is something else." "They do not understand the first trial," another dragon said, its voice low and cautious. "They should not interfere." "Yet they do." Ethan pressed a hand to his chest and took a slow, steadying breath. His mind ran through the events of the day, the quake, the falling rocks, the cries of the hatchlings. He thought about the rules he had broken, the warnings ignored, and the danger he had invited. Yet he felt no regret. In the face of life, rules were meaningless. Survival, protection, and courage mattered more than protocol. Hours passed. Ethan moved carefully, using the shadows to stay hidden. The ground was unstable and every step could trigger another collapse. He scavenged what he could from his torn pack, water, a few rations and a makeshift first aid kit. Each action was slow and deliberate, but each action was survival. The hatchlings chirped softly and Ethan whispered to them. "Stay close. Don't make a sound. I'll find a way out, I promise." Above them the dragons watched, fascinated. They had seen humans before but never like this. Never one who risked their own life so completely, never one who showed such concern for the young of another species. Kalira's eyes glowed faintly as she observed Ethan's careful movements. Something inside her shifted, a mixture of respect and confusion. By evening, the ground had settled enough for Ethan to move more freely. He found a narrow tunnel leading upward, partially hidden by rocks. It was risky, but it might be his only chance to reach the surface and signal for help without endangering the hatchlings. As he climbed, he could hear the distant, low hum of dragon wings overhead. They were close yet not attacking. Their curiosity seemed to hold them back. Ethan moved slowly, careful not to make noise, his every step calculated. He paused at the top of the tunnel. From there he could see the sky, tinged with red and gold from the setting sun. Smoke curled upward in thin, spiraling columns, and the ash drifted lazily on the wind. The hatchlings' chirps echoed faintly below, reminding him why he had come this far. A shadow fell across him. Ethan froze. Above, Kalira hovered, her massive wings creating a gust of wind that nearly knocked him off balance. He looked up at her, expecting anger or at least a warning. But instead, she studied him silently, her golden eyes searching. "You survived," she murmured, her voice like a ripple of wind. "Humans are fragile, yet you endure." Ethan swallowed hard. He did not know if she could understand him, but he replied anyway. "I had to. They're just babies. They can't survive without me." Kalira tilted her head as if trying to understand this strange species. "And you would risk your life, for creatures not your own?" He nodded. "Life is worth saving no matter whose it is." The dragon remained still for a long moment. Then, with a flap of her wings, she lifted into the air and disappeared into the fading light, leaving Ethan alone in the tunnel. He climbed out fully into the open, surveying the damaged nesting grounds. The hatchlings were safe, hidden in the crevice, and the adult dragons had not harmed them. Ethan let out a shaky breath, relief washing over him. For the first time since the quake, he felt hope. Night fell and the temperature dropped. Ethan wrapped himself in what remained of his protective gear and settled near the hatchlings' hiding spot. He stayed alert, listening to the soft breathing of the small dragons, their warmth and tiny movements reminding him that he had not failed. Far above, the adult dragons continued to circle. They spoke among themselves, their voices carrying questions and confusion. They had never seen a human act this way, and they were unsure what to make of it. Some argued that he was reckless, others that he was remarkable. All agreed on one thing: the hatchlings were alive, and the human had made it possible. Ethan closed his eyes, exhausted but determined. The volcano might still be unstable and the night might bring more dangers, but he had done what mattered most. The hatchlings were safe, and that was all that counted. And somewhere in the sky above, the dragons whispered among themselves, sensing that the humans' actions had changed something, though none of them yet understood what. For Ethan Carter, the silence after the fire was not empty. It was filled with the quiet hope of survival, the soft trust of the hatchlings, and the unspoken acknowledgement that sometimes, courage could ripple through the universe in ways no one expected. Ethan Carter woke slowly, the pain in his chest sharper than he had remembered. His muscles ached, his ribs burned when he breathed, but he forced himself upright. The hatchlings were nearby, curled together in the crevice he had cleared. Their tiny, bright eyes blinked at him, trusting him completely. Despite the ache, Ethan smiled. They had survived the quake. That was enough to keep him going. He had no signal, no help coming, and the volcano still rumbled underfoot. Each step he took was a struggle, yet he moved cautiously, scanning the rocky walls for anything useful. His pack was torn, food and water almost gone, but his mind worked quickly. Humans endured because they had to, because giving up was not an option. Ethan found a small pool of rainwater collecting in a crevice and drank slowly, careful not to upset his stomach. He checked the hatchlings, they were safe but restless. They chirped softly, nudging each other. Their trust reminded him why he had risked everything. A human could break, could fail, could give in to fear. But he would not. Hours passed. The ground shook occasionally, and the heat of the volcano made him sweat through his torn gear. He climbed carefully over rocks and ash, each step deliberate. He could not risk further injury. The hatchlings followed at a distance, moving cautiously through the shadows he had cleared for them. Ethan thought of home, of green fields, tall pine trees, and the quiet streets of his small town in Vermont. He had always thought he understood danger, but nothing had prepared him for this. Here, life and death were not abstract. They were immediate, pressing, and unrelenting. Every breath could be your last. Every step could collapse the ground beneath you. And yet he endured. He paused to rest, leaning against a jagged rock. The hatchlings clustered near him, sensing his need for support. One silver-scaled baby crawled onto his lap, chirping softly. Ethan laughed, a short, tired sound. "You're braver than me sometimes," he said, his voice hoarse. "But I won't let anything happen to you." Above, the adult dragons watched. Kalira, the silver guardian, hovered silently in the smoke-filled sky. Her eyes followed Ethan's careful movements. She had expected fear, weakness, maybe even panic, but she saw none of it. The human moved with determination, with patience, with endurance. It was unfamiliar to her species. "They survive in ways we cannot understand," she whispered to the others. "They are small, fragile, yet they endure through will, not strength." Another dragon tilted its head. "He risks himself again and again, and still he moves. What drives them?" Ethan pressed onward. He searched for a way out of the unstable area, scanning for tunnels, ledges, or anything that could lead to safety. The hatchlings followed, their trust in him absolute. He could feel the responsibility pressing against his shoulders, heavier than the pain in his chest. Each step mattered, each decision could save or end a life. Suddenly a small piece of debris fell from above. Ethan shouted and dove forward, protecting a hatchling that had wandered too close. His shoulder scraped against the rock, sending a jolt of pain through his body. The baby dragon chirped, trembling. Ethan held it close. "It's okay. You're safe." He realized then that humans endured not because they were stronger but because they cared. The dragons had strength, fire, and wings that could sweep across the sky. Humans had nothing like that. They had only will, patience, and the determination to protect those who could not protect themselves. As night fell, the temperature dropped. Ethan gathered the hatchlings as best he could, keeping them warm with what little gear remained. They slept near him, small and fragile, yet full of life. He stayed awake, listening to the distant rumble of the volcano, watching for signs of danger. Hours later, he felt something brushing against his shoulder. He opened his eyes slowly. Kalira hovered just above, her massive wings folded slightly. She looked down at him, golden eyes reflecting the dim light. Ethan froze for a moment, unsure if he should speak. "I won't hurt you," she said softly. "We've watched. You endure for them." Ethan swallowed. "I have to. They need me." The dragon tilted her head, considering. "You are small, fragile, yet you act as if nothing can stop you. How?" Ethan smiled faintly, though the pain in his chest made it difficult. "Because I have to. Fear doesn't save lives. Action does." Kalira remained silent, but something in her gaze shifted. The human's endurance, his willingness to face danger again and again, had unsettled her. His species was unlike any she had seen, weak in body but strong in ways that mattered. Through the night, Ethan rested only in short bursts, staying alert. He moved cautiously, keeping the hatchlings close, feeding them what little he could scavenge. He endured scratches, cuts, and exhaustion, but he pressed on. Every challenge he faced was met with patience and determination. By morning, the ground had settled slightly. Ethan had managed to clear a safe path for the hatchlings. He climbed slowly, guiding them carefully, each step deliberate. The adult dragons observed in silence, learning in a way they had never expected. Ethan reached a ledge with a view of the distant sky. Sunlight broke through the ash clouds, casting long shadows. He paused and looked at the hatchlings, their eyes wide, trusting, alive. He felt a surge of pride, exhaustion, and hope all at once. He understood something now that the dragons had not yet realized. Humans endure not because they are strong, not because they are fast, not because they have wings or fire. Humans endure because they care. And when that care drives them, even the smallest and weakest can face impossible odds and survive. Above, Kalira spread her wings and lifted higher, gliding silently. She watched Ethan and the hatchlings with a new understanding. Perhaps humans were fragile, but endurance, courage, and care made them far stronger than they seemed. Ethan Carter rested briefly, pain still burning through him, but hope stronger than fear. He would continue. He had to. The hatchlings depended on him, and no challenge, no quake, no fire could change that. He endured. And in the sky above, the dragons whispered among themselves, realizing that this human's courage might be something they had never seen before, and that it could not be ignored. Ethan Carter had survived longer than he ever thought possible. The volcanic world was still dangerous, but the hatchlings were safe and growing more confident with each passing hour. He had guided them through rocky paths, soot and ash coating their tiny scales, and each step reminded him of why he could not give up. Above, the adult dragons had gathered in a circle far from the nest. Kalira, the silver guardian who had watched Ethan so closely, hovered at the center. Around her, the elders spoke in low, musical tones, their wings creating gusts that swirled the smoke around them. The council had not met in centuries. They had never needed to decide anything about humans before. "This is unprecedented," said an elder with black scales that shimmered like night. "No human has ever shown such devotion to our young. And yet he does not seek reward, nor does he flee danger. He endures." Kalira tilted her head. "It is more than endurance. He thinks, plans, and acts for the hatchlings. His heart guides him, not fear." "How is it possible?" Another elder, bronze-scaled and old as memory itself, spoke slowly. "We have rules. No being, human or otherwise, may interfere with the first trial of fire. It is sacred. Yet this human, he broke our law. And still the young live." A hush fell over the group. The wind from their wings carried the sound of distant lava and ash. They had all witnessed it, the human risking his life repeatedly, moving with patience and courage far beyond what they expected from a fragile species. "He cannot remain here forever," said a smaller, younger dragon. "He will die if he stays in this unstable ground. And yet, to leave him, it would dishonor the young he saved. Kalira spoke softly, her voice carrying through the council. I watched him. He acts as if nothing can stop him, yet he is small and weak compared to us. And still he endures. I propose we break tradition. We allow him to survive. The council hissed in quiet disagreement. Break tradition? Asked the night-scaled elder. We cannot. Rules are eternal. Yet, the truth of his actions cannot be denied. Kalira spread her wings. He is not asking for reward. He does not seek glory. He protects without thought of himself. That is something we do not fully understand. Perhaps it is time we learn. A long silence followed. The council debated, wings folding and stretching, voices rising and lowering in soft tones. The decision was not easy. The rules of the first trial of fire had guided dragonkind for centuries. Breaking them could upset the balance of their world. And yet, the humans' courage had already shifted something in them. Finally, the Bronze Elder spoke. We will act. Not with force, not with judgment, but with respect. He has earned it. The hatchlings live because of him, and that alone honors him enough for our choice. Let us descend and aid him. High above the volcanic ground, Kalira signaled with a tilt of her head. The other dragons followed, their massive wings stirring the smoke and ash as they glided downward. Ethan, still hidden among rocks, did not expect them. He felt the rush of wind before he saw them and instinctively ducked, fearing anger or attack. Instead, the largest dragon, black-scaled and wise, hovered above him. Human, the voice sounded inside his mind, clear and strong. You endure for the young. You break our rules, yet your heart shows nothing but care. We offer you aid, not as captives, not as enemies, but as recognition of your courage. Ethan blinked, awe and disbelief washing over him. His chest ached, his muscles burned, but he felt hope like he had not felt in days. I just wanted to help them, he said, his voice hoarse. I didn't ask for anything. And yet, Kalira spoke, her voice gentle, your actions teach us a lesson we have never known. Courage, endurance and care, they are stronger than any law. The dragons moved in unison, lifting rocks and debris with gentle precision to clear a safe path. Ethan watched in amazement as they worked silently and efficiently, their massive wings moving without touching the hatchlings. It was a rescue unlike any other, a quiet acknowledgement, not a violent intervention. He helped guide the hatchlings along the cleared path, still exhausted but determined. Each step forward reminded him why he had endured so long, why he had fought against fear and pain. The dragons above did not rush him. They understood patience and they had learned it from watching him. Finally, they reached a plateau overlooking a safer valley, far from the unstable volcano. Ethan set the hatchlings down gently. They chirped, exploring the new space, safe and unharmed. For the first time since the quake, he felt a sense of relief so deep it made his chest ache in a different way, less from pain, more from gratitude. Kalira hovered beside him. You are human, fragile by nature. Yet your heart is vast. You endure and you protect. That is the lesson we will carry. Ethan nodded, blinking to keep his vision clear. I just did what anyone would do. I couldn't leave them. You are not like any human we have known, said the Bronze Elder. Your actions will change how we see your kind. Remember this, little one. Courage does not always roar. Sometimes it is quiet, steady, and unyielding. The dragons rose into the sky once more, leaving Ethan and the hatchlings in safety. He looked at the smoke-dimmed horizon and breathed deeply. For the first time he realized that humans, fragile as they were, could inspire respect in even the oldest and strongest creatures of the galaxy. He gathered the hatchlings close, their tiny warmth against his chest. We made it, he whispered. We survived, together. High above, the dragons watched silently. A quiet acknowledgement passed among them, a promise that the humans' courage would be remembered. Tradition had bent, yes, but only to honor the choice of one small, enduring heart. Ethan Carter looked at the sky, the smoke, the fading light of day. He had endured. He had protected the hatchlings. And in doing so he had earned something even stronger than survival, respect. And somewhere far above, the dragons whispered among themselves, a new understanding forming. Humans were fragile. But endurance, courage and care could change even the oldest of hearts. The valley was quiet, save for the soft rustle of leaves and the occasional chirp of the dragon hatchlings. Ethan Carter sat on a large rock, resting his aching body. His chest still burned from the fall and from days of strain, but his heart was light. He watched the hatchlings explore the safe space he had carved for them, their small wings flapping clumsily as they learned to navigate their new surroundings. Above, the dragons hovered, circling silently. They had not left entirely, they wanted to see the humans and the young one another had saved. Kalira, the Silver Guardian, glided slowly over the valley, her golden eyes fixed on Ethan. She tilted her head and spoke, though her voice echoed in his mind rather than through sound. "You have endured far more than any of your kind we have seen," she said. "And yet you do not boast nor seek reward. You only act to protect. That is why we honor you." Ethan blinked, surprised. "Honor? I didn't do anything special. I just couldn't leave them." Kalira's eyes softened. "That is exactly why it is special. Courage is measured not in strength or size, but in the willingness to act for those who cannot protect themselves." The other adult dragons had gathered nearby, their scales reflecting the fading sunlight. Some were massive and dark, others smaller and lighter, but all were watching with a quiet intensity. They whispered among themselves, a language Ethan could not understand, yet he sensed meaning in every tone. "He risked himself for our young," one elder dragon murmured. "We cannot forget this." "And we will not," Kalira replied. "From this day, a human may carry the mark of the Guardian. It is not given lightly, and it cannot be earned by force or demand. Only courage and care will earn it." Ethan felt a mixture of awe and disbelief. He had never imagined that humans could be honored in this way, especially by creatures so ancient and powerful. I don't know what to say," he admitted softly. "You need say nothing," Kalira answered. "Your actions speak louder than words ever could." The hatchlings chirped and scurried to Ethan, rubbing against his legs and arms. Their trust and affection reminded him of every moment he had endured to keep them safe. Each ache in his body, every scrape and bruise, suddenly seemed worth it. He picked up one of the silver-scaled hatchlings, cradling it carefully. "You remember, don't you?" he whispered. "I kept you safe." The hatchling chirped, nudging his hand. Ethan laughed softly, a sound of relief and warmth. "Good. That's all I need." Above, the dragons began a slow ritual. Kalira led the group in a wide circle above the valley. The elders followed, tracing intricate patterns in the sky. To humans it might have seemed like nothing more than flight, but Ethan could feel the weight of meaning behind it. This was a vow, a recognition of something sacred. "You have changed something in us," Kalira said. "We will remember. Your kind, small as it may be, holds courage that even the oldest of dragons may learn from." Ethan nodded, trying to keep his eyes from watering. He had never been praised like this, not for work, not for achievements, not for courage. But this was different. This was not pride or fame. This was honor earned in the quietest, truest way possible. The hatchlings played around him, safe for the first time since the quake. He watched as they learned to flap their wings, stumble and rise again. He realized that this small act of protection, his choice to endure, had created something lasting. The dragons would not forget him, and the hatchlings would grow strong because of what he had done. A soft breeze stirred the valley, carrying the voices of the dragons in whispers only they could hear. Ethan felt a strange peace settle over him. The world was dangerous, unpredictable, and sometimes terrifying, but it was also filled with quiet heroes and moments that mattered more than the rules of any species. Kalira descended closer, hovering gently above the hatchlings. "You will not leave them," she said, though it was more of an observation than a command. "And they will carry your memory as will we. Your endurance has earned a place among the guardians." Ethan looked at her, trying to understand. "Guardians?" he asked. "Yes," she replied. "It is a title we give only to those whose hearts act with courage and care. You have earned it, human. From this day forward, your actions will be remembered among our kind." He felt a warmth in his chest, not from the sun or the shelter of the valley, but from something deeper, a recognition that even a small, fragile human could make a difference in the galaxy. He had risked himself for the hatchlings, and in return, he had been seen, understood, and honored. The sun dipped lower in the sky, painting the valley in shades of gold and orange. Ethan gathered the hatchlings close one last time before leading them toward a safe cave he had prepared for longer shelter. Behind him, the dragons circled in a slow, protective dance. As night fell, the stars began to appear, scattered across the sky like silver dust. Ethan looked up, thinking of his home on Earth, the quiet streets, the forests, the life he had once known. And he understood that humans were not strong in the ways dragons were strong, but they had something the universe could not ignore: endurance, care, and courage that could inspire even the oldest creatures. He smiled as he watched the hatchlings settle, their tiny bodies breathing softly in the quiet night. Somewhere above, the dragons whispered again, a promise passing among them. They would never forget this human, nor the lesson he had taught them, that even the smallest, weakest beings could inspire respect, change hearts, and leave a lasting mark. Ethan Carter sat among the hatchlings, tired, bruised, and worn. He had endured. He had protected the innocent. And in doing so, he had earned something no one could take from him: the respect of dragons and a place in a story that would be remembered for generations. And somewhere high above, the dragons spread their wings, gliding silently across the starlit sky. Their hearts carried a new understanding, a new tradition, and a quiet memory of a human who fell to save their young, and endured in ways no one could have expected.